We may be having some discussions with Maduro, and we'll see how that turns out. They would like to talk.
All right, President Trump addressed the situation in Venezuela right there last night in a gaggle after landing back in our nation's capital, considering talks with the country's president, Nicolas Maduro. There's a couple things happening here. There's reports that a U.S. strike on the South American nation is, quote, imminent. And also about an hour before President Trump made those comments on the tarmac, this was the post from Secretary of State Marco Rubio. It came in at 5:38. State Department will designate Cartel de los Soles as a foreign terrorist organization headed by Maduro. The group has corrupted the institutions of government in Venezuela and is responsible for terrorist violence and conducted by and with other designated FTOs, as well as for trafficking drugs into the United States in Europe. Timing is interesting on a Sunday night, why that designation was made. I'm pleased to bring in our panel. She is a national security analyst, Brigitte Gabriel. She's also the chairwoman of actforamerica.org and the author of the best-selling book. You see it right here on the screen, Rise. And pleased to have national security expert Glenn Ignacio, retired Air Force Special Operations Commander. So the timing of this, the post from Secretary Rubio, I'm going to start with you, Brigitte. We know that the Mexican cartels have been designated as FTOs. Why do you think Rubio came out to do this tweet and then President Trump signaling that it's working? The strikes maybe are getting Maduro to a phone call.
Look, the strikes are working, and also we need to keep in mind that 25% of our deployed military power is right now in the Caribbean. So we are. This is a huge military force. This is great firepower. So President Trump is playing the game of negotiations using power, force, strength, and by designating them as terrorist organizations, he will be able to exercise more strength and use more force against them. President Trump is not interested in changing the regime. I don't believe. President Trump wants to make sure that drug smuggling into the United States is stopped in the best way possible.
You've got the carrier strike group, USS Gerald R. Ford, Glenn, over there. We know that they're left. We played a clip just minutes ago of Democrat Senator Murphy in Connecticut saying, oh, drugs aren't coming in through the Caribbean, and they want to say they're wildly illegal. But they were okay when millions of Americans, tens of millions of Americans, were dying from fentanyl.
I'm glad you asked me that question because I'm in Connecticut right now and people aren't happy with him anyways. But if they're coming over the land, closing the border, which is what President Trump did, was exactly what was needed to shut down that route. And it has dropped significantly since that time, as we've seen the last 4 years or the prior 4 years. That did not occur. In fact, there wasn't really much action against the drug organizations. You know, the DEA and everybody, they work their tail off to try to stop this, but we haven't seen anything significant to impact the air, land, and sea smuggling routes until now. So that's where I think that there's finally a push into the right direction. And hopefully there's discussions to actually have Maduro help us stop this versus his involvement as we go.
Well, obviously, we know that the minute President Trump does get on a phone call, there's so much transparency here. We'll probably get a Truth Social post, so we'll watch that. We're also watching today, UN Security Council will vote on the U.S.-Gaza peace plan. Palestinian state most likely will come up in this as well. We know Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu opposes this very strongly, saying that his opposition to a Palestinian state in any territory has not changed. Gaza will be demilitarized. Hamas will be disarmed from its weapon. Either the easy way or the hard way. I do not need reinforcements and tweets and lectures from anyone. Tomorrow's also a big day because MBS is going to be with President Trump in the Oval Office, Brigitte, and we know one of the sticking points there is they too want a Palestinian state. But they want a lot more from the United States, including security guarantees. So it'll be interesting to see how President Trump, who has a great relationship with MBS and Saudi Arabia, all the economic developments, you know, kind of cracks this, because this is going to be a difficult one. Your take?
It is difficult, but it is possible to happen where Saudi Arabia can join the Abraham Accord under this presidency of President Trump. As a matter of fact, I think President Trump wants to seal the deal by bringing Saudi Arabia, using his friendship with MBS, to bring Saudi Arabia to the Abraham Accord. Saudi Arabia, MBS wants to establish himself and build his reputation on the world stage, especially after the assassination of Khashoggi back in 2019. He wants to come back as a big player. And so President Trump extending and capitalizing on the momentum of all these peace talks in the Middle East and the Abraham Accord and the prestige that President Trump's friendship is bringing to any leader he associates with, I think he's going to give the guarantees needed for MBS to be able to consider seriously joining the Abraham Accord within the next 3 years.
There's a lot in play here. There's also the F-35s, Glenn, that Saudi Arabia wants, including some security U.S. guarantees. There's big bases in the region. Talk to us about the potential for that also being used as leverage there if they want these jets, what it means to have Saudi, recognize Israel and Abraham Accords, but also some more normalization in stabilization in the Middle East, and how MBS will be able to kind of, in a way, I guess, do what his major goal is, which Brigitte said, come across as a player, but also could be a major, again, once in a generation opportunity for the Middle East to be reshaped.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I completely agree with everything Brigitte has said. I mean, it's a big thing about the F-35s getting into Saudi. They have F-15s just like Israel did. We have, of course. And then Saudi is now transitioning to something more modern. Now, Netanyahu is not really comfortable with that unless that Saudi becomes part of these accords. But it really doesn't matter at this point, because with the Saudi-American or U.S. relationship, it's rather significant. The F-35s, to have them become an official ally of the United States, which Congress has to actually acknowledge. And additionally, they're looking for artificial intelligence, data centers, and other things with the United States. So Saudi has always supported us all the way back from the original Gulf War to present day. Making them an official ally is important. The F-35s, I think this is a great step forward. And again, everything in the Middle East is about the relationships. And that is something that we have with President Trump. And that's something we did not have the prior 4 years. So this is a great thing to have him in-house at the White House and how this occurred.
It's going to be fascinating. Yeah, Biden called MBS a pariah, and they are no fan of Iran. So having Saudi on our side, and also with all the strategic developments, whether it be AI and other things, the economics, a big upside here. We'll watch it all, of course, live tomorrow here on Newsline when the